You know any wizards? Because sometimes it feels like it takes some magic to make the cap work in the NHL. Welcome in the DNVR Avalanche Podcast in the Toyota Lounge, powered by your Front Range Toyota dealerships and presented by Bet365. We got E and Rudo in studio and AJ calling in. We're going to be talking a lot about the Avs cap situation today, but maybe some other trade options or maybe some other things. But before we get all of that out of the way, let's get to the news of the day, both Avalanche and non-Avalanche related. Two players on waivers today, one being John Ludvig for the Avs and the other being Tristan Jarry for the Pittsburgh Penguins. A couple months ago, Tristan Jarry being on waivers might have been interesting to the Avs. I don't think any of us probably wanted him, but
only Tiff.
Now the Avs don't have to think about that very much because they've got legitimate goaltenders in net, so that's nice. On the Avs side of things, though, the John Ludvig getting waived situation, I don't know that anyone should be that surprised given how little Ludvig has played for the Avs. They even put him on a conditioning stint. For whatever reason, he just didn't seem to be part of the Avs lineup plans.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep. He's been here all season. He's been healthy.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
played 8 games.
So if you're trying to move him, like you're talking to teams, it's very simple. The first question will be like, well, he hasn't played. Is he healthy? And you're like, yeah, he is. And hence why you use the conditioning stint for two reasons: to keep him fresh. You know, I mean, obviously to go play some games. B, to showcase him a little bit in case, you know, you can swing a deal or something. And then, like I've always said before, when you put a guy on waivers, because you've talked to the 32 teams, then, you know, there hasn't been 31 teams because you don't talk to yourself. Well, Rudo talks to himself sometimes, but
Constantly.
Or AJ. But you've talked to the 31 teams, and, you know, there doesn't seem to be anything that, you know, they want to swap for, or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden you get put on waivers. Or it could be for cap reasons too, or whatever. It gives you more flexibility and all that kind of stuff. There's so many things you don't know. We'll know what they do tomorrow. If they send him to Loveland, then that was the purpose of it. If somebody claims them, or like I've said to you before, and I'll say it again, a lot of times teams will say, okay, I'll take him. Can you clear him first? And then we'll swap a contract afterwards. So 24 hours later, 48 hours later, and then there's always somebody that's always smarter than anybody else on the internet that says, they could have had him for free. You know, yeah, I know. We all know. We all get that. You know, there's a reason. It's because you're contract for a contract, like we always try to explain here on this channel. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. He hasn't played. It's hard to say that he's been good, bad, ugly. Like,
just hasn't played enough to really make a decision on that.
And when you play and you haven't played in a month, it's so hard to play in this league, and so it's hard to judge him. And again, I like the pickup at the time. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, that's my confusion with where the Avs ended up with Ludvig, is you actively went out and got this guy off of waivers to be part of your team, and you ended up in a situation where Kylington gets hurt, where you're rotating DeHaan, and sure, to some extent you can say Middleton ended up taking that job. I get it, big, unga bunga, whatever.
Yeah.
But to not have Ludvig as part of the rotation at all is weird to me.
Yeah. And again, I agree, and that's why we're going to see what they're going to, what's going to come of it tomorrow. You know what I mean? Once he clears or don't clear. Yeah.
We saw on December 8th, Giovanni Smith got put on waivers, cleared waivers, and immediately was dealt to the Avs.
Yep.
In the Blackwood deal, like we've seen them pull this move a couple of times. Jacob McDonald cleared waivers however long ago, and then ended up a San Jose Shark. So, I guess the moral of the story is they're doing a trade with the San Jose Sharks.
Or maybe
those are the two examples I can think of. But like, It could just be a demotion if he doesn't get claimed, and if he gets claimed, the Avalanche are clearly comfortable with that because he's played 8 games.
Yeah.
And has not been part of the rotation, and they are clearly like, okay, it's Keaton Middleton's time. And I know the rest of us are kind of like, what? Why? But they have
made their
that
decision
choice.
for sure.
Yeah, they're into it. I don't get it. I rewatched the game this morning, and I was very confused as to why he was continuing to get shifts. But it's whatever. I don't know that I could expend more energy being mad about their 6th, 7th defenseman right now. So
there you go.
Whatever.
Well said.
The other side of that conversation, don't know how close he is really, but Oliver Kylington is skating again. Who's to say when he's ready to come back? But if you're talking about a 7th defenseman, I think it was pretty clear even before this stretch of Ludvig not playing that the Avs wanted Kylington to be that guy more than a Ludvig or whoever.
Yeah, and my only concern. Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go.
No, just 7th guy. I don't even think that's true. I think that they want Kylington
6th, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think they want him playing more often than not. It was just, he was so bad at the start of the year and in the preseason that it was like, he's got to figure it out. And then right before he got hurt,
he figured it out.
Yeah. Yeah. He was playing really well in those like 2 whole games.
Yeah.
But it's enough to be like, okay, like they may not be in like desperate need here of help back there, but Calvin DeHaan and Keaton Middleton are not going to get you through a playoff series. They're just not.
No. I agree.
My only concern with Oliver is, again, he didn't play a lot of hockey the last 2 years for all the reasons. And then this year he hasn't played a lot of hockey again. You're going on a 3rd year now of not a lot of hockey. And that's what concerns me a little bit. And that's why he had a rough start. There's a reason you have a rough start. It's not because he's not physically in shape. It's because he hadn't played.
Yep.
And then there was a new system, and you put everything together. His showing was not good. I mean, we were the first ones to say, like, oh, man. And then he came back, and whatever. He was fine, like you said, for a couple of games. Great. Then all of a sudden he was gone again. So that's my only concern with him is he has not had a lot of games played the last few years. And boy, when that starts, it's like, oof, I don't know, a little nerve-wracking a little bit. If you're counting on that as part of the 6 or the depth coming up here in the playoffs.
Look, I think there's a conversation there that I don't know how.
Don't worry about it.
I don't know how deep we get into on today's show, but if you get Kylington back before the end of January, let's say, yeah, unfortunately, there's the 4 nations, which limits the time you get, but if you get a little bit of time to make a decision about the trade deadline, if Kylington comes back, plays well, maybe you only feel like you need to go get 1D instead of 2 or whatever it might end up being at the deadline. There are some decisions to be made there.
There's this weird phenomena going on with Avalanche fans towards Oliver Kylington where they're pretending like he's a rookie where he has 10 games played in his career.
He's
and it's
27.
only the 10 games this year. He's been in the NHL for a long time, and he's been really good in the NHL for long stretches.
Yeah.
Eric, he was a top pairing defenseman with Chris Tanev when you were working with the Flames. Like Shilly has a significantly better track record of being a high impact defenseman in the NHL. Now, I know that it's been a few years. I understand there have been a lot of things that have happened between now and then, but what he did in Colorado this year is an extremely small sample of his career of him more or less being a much better defenseman than Keaton Middleton has been. Certainly, in the couple of games he's played for the Avs this year, but also like it's his two-way ability. Defensively, it's always gonna be kind of an adventure for him, but he can produce offense, which was the thing Sam Malinsky was supposed to be doing. And Sam Malinsky has 5 points in 40 plus games, and now his defensive game is starting to really plummet. So you're looking at Eric Brandstrom and Oliver Kylington were supposed to be doing that. They moved Brandstrom for because Malinsky's
for
play
LTIR space.
Yeah, exactly. For a little extra LTIR breathing room. And now Malinsky has not delivered. on the offensive side of the puck. Defensively, he's been better than I would think we all probably would have expected.
As long as you ignore the last 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah.
But his play over the last 2 weeks, his play has really taken a turn for the worse. And how much of that is he was playing next to Sam Girard, he was playing next to Calvin DeHaan.
Yeah.
Now he's playing next to Keaton Middleton every night. And that's not to say it's Keaton Middleton's fault that Sam Malinsky's turning pucks over like crazy. That's not fair. But his play has taken a real dive there. And what are the factors that are going into that? And I think that when you look at, they need a little bit of offensive juice somewhere in their roster. Oliver Kylington coming in and helping from the back end. We keep talking about how their defense is as high scoring as it is. It needs help. It needs to produce a little bit more offense. Keaton Middleton, Calvin DeHaan, this version of Sam Malinsky, those three are not doing anything for you offensively. They're not helping you. They're not pushing play. They're not creating offense. It's a black hole. And Kylington is a guy that could actually help them. And I know that's not what we're talking about today, so I'm going to drop this.
I mean, it's fine. We're in that conversation, so it is what it is. And I think that particularly the last couple of games has been put under the microscope because of Sam Girard being out, who it felt like, yes, you had Makar and Taves producing offense on your top pairing, and Girard was really that third defenseman that was chipping in regularly on the offensive side of the puck. And with him out of the lineup, all of a sudden your bottom four feels like Josh Manson is this weird enigma where some nights he's outrageous and other nights he can't even handle a puck for 1 second. So
kind of just living with what Josh Manson is at this point. Because,
right.
I don't believe the Avalanche have any interest in moving him or trying to change him. I think they're doing the millennial thing. They are accepting him for who he is, and they are appreciating his faults and his strengths.
I'm about it. But it does show that, and look, don't get me wrong, when you look at a Cale Makar and even a Devon Taves, you're supposed to rely on those guys, but you can't have your bottom two pairings be black holes on the regular when it comes to offensive production. So
yeah,
that I agree with you is where Kylington makes sense. It's, again, I think it would be foolish to assume that even a healthy version of the Avs D-core is what they stick with on March 8th. I would not be surprised at all to see them add a player or maybe more to the D-core. That's also true of the forward core. So I would say keep that in mind. And we'll get into some of the conversations of maybe not who, but what that salary could potentially look like or what they might have to do to make things work in the cap in a little bit here. But I'm just saying, don't make any assumptions yet about this being the final look of the Colorado Avalanche.
No, I don't. I think for the majority of teams, this is not their final look. Whoever thinks they can win it all is going to add on D, is going to add up forward.
Yep.
Nothing new. It could be depth-wise, it could be front runner players. Yeah. What I mean by that, primary players, which I don't think the Avs are going to be in that market. Some teams might be, though. Who knows? But there's certainly going to be a little bit of movement, and for all the reasons, because you're protecting yourself, you're making sure you get all the depth possible to go through a long spring, and if you're not doing that, you're not doing your job. So, CMAC company, they do their job, and they're going to be ready, and obviously they have those names in mind right now, and are keeping dibs on them, and they'll strike when they strike.
It's David Savard season, friends.
Please no, please no. Miss me with that. Comment from Randy here talking about Sammy not lighting the scoring up either. I mean, he's not scoring at an outrageous pace, but for a second pairing defenseman, he was on a 35-point pace.
Sammy G.
Yeah, Sammy G.
That's what you want.
Right. That's good for a second pairing guy. That's good production. I get it. Girard is who he is. He's not a guy who's going to put the puck in the back of the net for you very often, but he was collecting those points. He was setting up plays with the assists he was getting. Obviously, out of the lineup, he's not doing that for you at the moment, but I think sometimes as fans' view of defensive production gets skewed because of how ridiculously dumb their top pairing is and the outrageous production they get out of Makar and even a guy like Taves. For your bottom four defensemen, a guy like Girard is solid production. And it's funny, right? Because that's only like 10, 12 points more than Malinsky has this year, but that makes a pretty big difference for a defenseman when it comes to their production levels.
For the record, 21 points for Devon Taves. Sam Girard, 18 points.
Yeah, and up until about 2 weeks ago, Taves really had been underproducing significantly this year.
Yeah.
So,
and the big thing with Girard is that he's driving play.
Sure,
he is creating a lot of offense. It may not always be going into the net, but he's driven play at the second best rate of his career so far this season. So. We talk about Colorado's offensive problems. Sam Girard has been a boon for that, and you see what they've looked like on the back end without him.
There you go. That's what I wanted to say.
It's a tough one right now.
You miss him when he's not there. You realize, like last year, for that longer period of time, you're like, maybe Sammy G is good. No, there's no maybe. He is good.
I know it was a specific situation, but watching the Avs not have an answer in overtime last night because Devon Taves and Kyle McCarr, they couldn't play only them. And so it was like, we'll try Josh Manson. Immediately gave up a breakaway. And then they were like, we're done with Josh Manson. No more Josh Manson. Yeah. It was interesting because that 4v3 PK last night, they played two forwards for most of it. They had Parker Kelly and Logan O'Connor out there for a long stretch of it. And that's because they didn't have the defenseman that they wanted to trust in
Sammy G
in a 4v3. So not having Sam Girard for that ended up being like, and again, that's a very specific thing, only for the regular season, obviously. But not having a defenseman for a third defenseman for your overtime is like as niche as it gets. But you can really see how much they missed last night.
I guess you could say, having a quality bottom four in your defense is a lot like making sure your Grundle smells good. Could say that for sure.
I asked you the other day, what's Grundle?
Yeah, you learned what a Grundle is the other day. And Mando knows exactly what a Grundle is. And they'll make sure all of your man parts are smelling right, feeling clean, looking good. Whatever it might be, whether it's butts, balls, armpits, belly buttons, or grundles, you name it. Mando has you covered with all of their products to not only keep you smelling good, but keep you feeling clean. And I don't know, living the dream. Does that work? Am I allowed to rhyme on these advertisements? I don't know. Make sure you get with Mando today. Of course, try any one of their amazing products. And when you get with their starter pack, you can get a solid stick of deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, including mini body wash and deodorant wipes, as well as free shipping. And you can get all of that plus $5 off with our exclusive code, which is a 40% off your entire starter pack with code DNVR at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show and let them know we sent you over there. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. And once you're smelling good, feeling good, got it all set up, make sure you're getting down to your local Toyota dealerships to get yourself into your brand new car. The official vehicle of both DNVR and the Colorado Avalanche is Toyota. So go check them out. They've got 17 different all-wheel drive vehicles. Allegedly, it's supposed to snow like crazy this weekend, so, Toyota can get you through that. Of course, 16 different hybrid vehicles, too, so you can save some gas on your daily commute, whatever that might be when you're driving. So once again, head to your local Front Range Toyota dealerships, including Auto Nation Toyota, Rapids, Centennial, Corin Toyota, and Boulder, Groove Toyota, and Littleton, Mount State Toyota in Denver, Stevens and Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevens and Toyota West in Lakewood. Again, Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. And I kind of want to start I don't even know if you call this the cap conversation, but we can bring up the injury report, as we often have, because it does start here with where the Avs manage their cap. And obviously we talk about Kylington is skating, Nichushkin is skating, Miles Wood is now skating, which I think is a little bit of a surprise. I think, we all expected the Wood injury to last a little bit longer than some of the other ones. But he is skating now, and Wood is the interesting one on this conversation of cap-wise because he is one of the guys on LTIR. Right now, this very second, the Avs have about $3.8 million in cap. If John Ludvig clears waivers and they send him down or they move him out or whatever it is, that's about another $800K, which would make it about $4.6 million. Now, if Miles Wood comes back off of LTIR and rejoins the full lineup, that's $2.5 million counting against it. So you'd end up with about $2.1 million in space with a healthy Miles Wood on your lineup. The Avs Look, there are a couple of different scenarios we can get into here, but if the Avs want to do any significant moves, they're probably going to have to do some cap juggling or piece moving or something, right?
Yeah, there's going to have to be some surgery somewhere. It's just it's really just if Gabe Landeskog comes back, they're in trouble. Like
for sure.
If Gabe Landeskog and Miles Wood both come back, they have real work to do. They have real work to do. There's a decent chunk of money that needs to be found somewhere. So
that's a sorry, Casey. You need bone surgery moment.
I mean, it's I'm telling you that if Miles Wood is close to coming back and they think Gabe Landeskog is also coming back, they are going to Jeff Gillooly that guy just to make their life a little bit easier.
Gillooly. Can't believe I even know that name. Big Jeff. Tanya's boyfriend. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I know.
So that guy, yeah, he's going to get kneecapped, and he needs to have a body man on him because it makes the Avs' life much easier if they don't have to try and fit Miles Wood and Gabe Landeskog. There's work to be done if Landy comes back, but it's nowhere near as bad as if both Landy and Miles Wood are coming back healthy.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, even if Miles Wood doesn't come back, the Avs are still looking at, I don't know about calling it major surgery, but they probably need to move a piece out to fit Gabe Landeskog if he comes back in the regular season. Just kind of the reality of that situation.
That one, they could probably, I mean, they might be able to get there depending on what they do, but they might be able to get there with a couple of demotions.
Run some 20-man roster shenanigans, sure.
Right, exactly. Like, they might be able to get by with doing that.
Do the Vegas thing and ice 16 skaters for a game or two.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and if it's, Wood is kind of the complicating factor there. I mean, I guess Landeskog is the real complicating factor. But you'll do whatever you want to make Gabe Landeskog work. I don't think that's the case with Miles Wood. That one you're probably like, you're not healthy. Wait till the first game of the playoffs. Thanks.
It gets tough though, right? We're at mid-January now, and I know we have this conversation every 2 weeks. Cool. Landeskog was part of morning skate the other day. Neat. It's really hard to put a gauge on how close or far Gabe Landeskog is from coming back still right now. So for me, and it's been this way for a while for me, is look, I'll start taking it seriously when Landeskog is a full participant in practice. Not this, he did one drill. He played a little game at center ice for 5 minutes. When he is a full participant, when he puts on one of those pumpkin jerseys and is a full participant in practice, I'll start taking Landy coming back seriously.
Yeah, I mean, it's the National Hockey League. It's a tough league. You see guys like, just use Ivan right now. You know what I mean? Obviously, he got injured. Now, his play was not, at its finest up to the injury. And now somehow you lose your spot. And then you got to go to the AHL. And then you got to bring back what you were, bringing before the injury. And especially at the start of the season, which is a trust factor with the coaching staff. But even him, you haven't played in a little bit. And that you lose your momentum. You lose your swag. You lose. So Gabe, I agree with Rudo. It's been a while since he's played. It's years with an S. So until you're skating and you're a full participant in practice, and it's not going to be 3 practices and then he's playing. It's going to have to be for a while. He's looked better than he has the last. It's like people telling me last year, like before playoffs, he was out there for morning skate, and then they're like, "Oh, he's going to play," and it's like, no, but there's no way. You know what I mean? There's no chance.
Yep.
Now, is he way further ahead than that? Absolutely. And again, that's why Bednar doesn't want to talk about it, because it gets annoying every day and to be asked about it. And at the end of the day, he's progressing. He's on his way. It's going to happen when it's going to happen. But cap aside, like Rudo just said, he's going to have to get out there and do practices for a while. And when I say a while, it's a big W. You know what I mean?
Ever
Capital
not
W.
done something for 3 years and just
Yes. And it's going to be a while. And then you're going to get your rhythm back and your tempo back and then your physical ability back of like, you know, taking a real practice and, you know, a few days and all that kind of stuff. He's not there yet, obviously. Cap aside. And then once that gets done, and, you know, and again, I think he's going to be ready when he's going to be ready. And whenever that is, it's whenever that is.
Yeah. I don't know when that is going to be. I'm not going to try and speculate. What I will say is, for the Avs cap-wise, the easiest path forward is probably maybe Gabe Landeskog's not ready till the playoffs angle.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
Well, for what Eric's talking about here, he needs a training camp, essentially.
Yep.
So say that's 3 weeks of him practicing. All right. The last game of the season is April 13th, I believe. 3 weeks. You're just working backwards here. This is the end of March. They need to have some sort of idea what's going on with him before the trade deadline. We're talking about like a 3-week window here.
Yep.
Where this can work out, where you can even fit him in, because he's not coming back before the Four Nations tournament. So now we're at the end of February as the earliest that he could start practicing with the team. Like this window is almost, it's funny to say, on January 15th, 2 full months from the end of the season, but this window's basically non-existent for him to return in the regular season.
Yep. It would be not only incredibly narrow, you're still talking about if he's going to return in the regular season, he has to be able to go. This is not a, hey, return, play 2 games, realize you can't do it, and retire, because that destroys the Avs cap situation for the deadline if he does that. There are just so many factors that make it so difficult, or maybe not difficult, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for Landeskog to return in the regular season at this point. So, and
that the other complicating part of that is you don't know how long you're going to be in the playoffs.
True.
Like, I said this in the Avalanche Discord today, but isn't the worst case scenario that Landeskog comes back, plays 3 games in the postseason, they lose, they're eliminated, he's awful in those 3 games, and then he's just on your books, and he might suck now? But he's like, hey, I did all this to come back. Like, isn't this worst case that you're now paying $7 million for what could be a $3 million player? And, like, that's, I think the fear of Landeskog returning at all is that the chances of him being a greatly diminished player are very high.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have high hopes at all that he's going to be, like, an impact guy. But now you're talking about he might be a third liner. And if he's a good third liner, you can live with it, right? Like you can, it's not your favorite, but you can live with it.
You're overpaying him by a couple mil, yeah.
Player, exactly. If he's not an effective player at that point, that's your worst case scenario. Is that he comes back and then you pay that money out, and he can't even come close to it. So that's, to me, I think that's your fear, because now you're talking about, oh well, he'll come back in the playoffs. That's great if you're going to go on a cup run and you have 20 games, 25 games to see what he's going to be. That's not great if he plays 3 games and you lose in the first round, or however many games he ends up playing, and you lose in the first round, and he just might not be any good.
I do want to reiterate, there's also no guarantee he comes back for the playoffs. There's no guarantee he comes back at all. We don't know. We don't know where Landeskog ends up in this timeline. It's entirely possible. And this is why it feels like a terrible situation, because there's so many checkpoints. He has to get back to full practice. Then he has to get cleared for contact. Then he has to go through full practices with contact. And then he has to play real games. And at any point along that timeline, he could say, nope, can't do it. Done. So
yeah,
that's part of why him coming back and not being any good is the worst case scenario, because it means you got through all those checkpoints and we're willing to commit to that $7 million contract. And if it ends up being for, I don't want to say nothing, but for a player who's maybe more like a $2 million player, yeah, that's tough for the Avs.
That's why it was such a big deal last summer, mixed in with the Natushkin situation. And, And that's why it was a big deal, because it was different than the year before, because he's on the path to recovery here.
Yep.
You know, again, until you play a game, right? Because you'll never know until you play a game. So that's why it was so complicated. It's still so complicated, and that's why it's still talked about, because it's a touchy, delicate, unknown situation that's been hard to maneuver, and that's why they hired a cap person as well. And you know, every move that they make, even we just talked about Ludvig, and maybe that's something to do with that. Who knows, right? Every little bit matters, and that's why they send guys down all year and back up and every day. And even though there's some people that were like, "Oh my God, this guy got sent down," it's like, man, he got sent down the last 20 days, you know. But whatever, Ivan. You know? But to some people, it was like, "Oh, it's news." You know, it's not news. It's all trying to maneuver this kind of cap situation.
I don't want to get a little bit more into that, but first we do have to pay a few bills here. We are, of course, brought to you by Bet365. Make sure you head over to Bet365 to get your bets on, whether that's on an Avs game or a Nuggets game, whatever you feel like betting. I mean, you can bet on whatever you want. I'm sure you can bet on the Four Nations when that pops off. So do it with Bet365, and do it by signing up with a DNVR 365 code today. You get $150 in bonus bets when you sign up with that code and bet $5 on anything. So jump in, have some free money to bet with, and you know, maybe you get lucky. Maybe you make a ton of money. Maybe you're living the dream at that point. So jump in with Bet365 today and that DNVR 365 code. If your hockey team gets up by 3 and you pick them to win, you even get the instant early payout with the Bet365 options. Of course, jump in with them. When you do gamble with Bet365, you must be 21 or older, physically located in Colorado. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER today. Of course, terms and conditions apply. And once you've won a little bit of money with Bet365, make sure you're enjoying your evenings with Coors Light. You can choose chill with Coors Light. The mountains literally turn blue on the bottle or the can to let you know it's ice cold and ready to drink. They're available pretty much everywhere, but you can get it delivered right to your front door with CoorsLight.com/DNVR thanks to Instacart. So go get yourself some Coors Light. Have it, enjoy an Avs game. Have it, enjoy an evening. Maybe you're cooking, whatever it might be. Coors Light, always a great choice. Of course, Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Please drink responsibly. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. Kind of mentioned some of the numbers already. And realistically, if we're talking about the Avs making trade deadline moves, you're living in a world where Gabe Landeskog does not come back in the regular season. If Gabe Landeskog comes back, that's pretty much it. The Avs don't really have any cap space to make significant moves unless you're doing serious reconstruction of your roster, which you already have to do some of just to fit Landeskog back in. So it's very tough to see them making significant trade deadline moves and Landeskog get healthy in the regular season. Now, if Landeskog is out for the regular season, regardless of whether he comes back in the playoffs or not, that's where things start to get interesting, because before Miles Wood comes back, depending on what you want to do with your roster, you have anywhere with a little less than $4 million to, if you want to run a 20-man roster, you're talking about something like $6 million in space. You can work with that. You can do a significant amount of things, but we talked about some potential trade targets the other day. Realistically, if you're the Colorado Avalanche, how much are you willing to move out at this deadline to make a bigger trade work?
How big? Like, what is your, like, you know what I mean? Like,
let's just say Yanni Gourde.
Okay, so is that like your top of the line? Like, that's as expensive as they will get?
I mean, in reality, I think, yeah, probably. If you want to have the Fantasyland conversation of, like, what do you do if you have the opportunity to go get a Brady Tkachuk or something, we can have that conversation, even if I don't think that's reality.
I just don't think it's reality, so it's like,
I know,
I don't
but
think we need to spend that time. But
that's fine. Gourde then, yeah.
Yeah, so like at the dead, like Yanni Gourde, I think it's tough to imagine them getting a player that fits them better.
Sure.
Than Yanni Gourde, other than David Savard.
Come on.
Really, it's. I think they've got whatever assets, because Yanni Gourde isn't like so good that it's gonna be it's going to be like so expensive.
As long as Ron Francis doesn't Ron Francis.
Yeah, like I'm not looking at it and saying, okay, well, there goes a first round pick. Like it could be a second round pick and a decent prospect. It could be, a roster player even. I genuinely, Miles Wood is actually, like, not even kidding around. Miles Wood is a great fit for what they do and how they have built over the last couple of years already. So Miles Wood, and obviously he can't be like the centerpiece, but as balancing some of the money and helping Colorado's cap situation out down the road, something like that would be a good start. Ross Colton is obviously right in the crosshairs of that. If Ross Colton's not playing center, he's a $4 million wing. I would rather pay $4 million, even a little in excess of that, to keep Jonathan Drouin next year.
I think for Gord, right? So
yeah, so like Ross Colton is right in the crosshairs of trying to balance your cap sheet. He's a guy that just you look at their top forwards. If all of their top forwards are healthy, and I'm not counting Landeskog in that. Obviously, has not happened this year, so it's kind of a dream at this point. But if all of their top forwards are healthy, Ross Colton is probably the least valuable to you. So that's,
probably true. Like, yeah.
And just the $4 million puts him right in that middle of the area where you're talking about, okay, we've got to do something. I understand, like, Casey Middlestat has been a pretty big disappointment for the last 20 games. His first 40 games as an Av were pretty damn good. And then it's obviously cratered, but like I already have grown a little tired of Casey Middlestat can't do it.
Yeah, I don't believe that at all.
Casey Middlestat was pretty good in the postseason. He's also really going through it right now, and I don't know how to feel about it. I don't think that there's a move that they can make to improve upon Casey Middlestat.
Exactly what it is.
And so I think it's just a waste of time to be like, we're gonna put Casey Middlestat into a deal. And we're gonna get something that's gonna make us that much better. And I don't see that as realistic. If you think he's this bad, then other teams aren't gonna pay for $5 million of him for the next 2 seasons. That's not how that works. So
what is realistically available that is better than Casey Middlestat for 2C? Realistic. Don't tell me Sidney Crosby, because that's a joke. Of course, if Pittsburgh wants Casey Middlestat for Sidney Crosby, you don't even think about it. You make the deal. No shit.
Yeah.
But
obviously. Yeah, and like Yanni Gord's not a 2C. Like he's just not
3C.
Yeah, he's a 3C at this point. He might have had 2 years in Seattle where it was like,
even his top production isn't really,
but there's not. It's just not. It's not realistic with that, and so we come back to it's the same conversation we had last year before the Avs traded for Casey Middlestat.
Yep.
Who out there like you run into the problem of bad teams have second line center talents playing first line center. They're not going to move them because they don't have anybody better. And the good teams aren't going to help you. They're not looking to move those guys. So then it's like, okay, are you going to Vancouver and getting one of those two guys? That's extremely expensive, both in trade and in salary. And they both present different problems. Are you trying to get one of those guys out of Boston? Those haven't worked. So I'm not sure where you go to try to find that improvement. The most realistic path is you just need to figure it out. Like, you're not going to get Ryan O'Reilly out of Nashville, as much as that would be a fun thing, his homecoming, and he would be the perfect fit for what they need and what they do. And, that would be great, but I think that's not going to happen. So we're looking at Yanni Gordon, Jake Evans are probably your guys that you're talking about at this deadline, as these are the guys that you're trying to build around, because you do that. Parker Kelly's been really good as a depth center this year. Not in the faceoff department, as we've talked about, but really good at doing what you want him to do. He's earned that 4C job for me. So now you're just trying to thread the needle here.
Yeah. And you're kind of leading us into our next topic of JT Miller and Elias Pettersson. Obviously, the rumors have been swirling for a while now. regardless of how you feel about it on an individual level or quality of player, first off, I just don't see a universe where the Avs can afford Elias Peterson.
Yeah.
Elias, I'm sorry, I can't say his first name right, whatever. $11.6 million cap hit. If the Avs didn't get Landy back, Miles Wood doesn't get healthy, and they move out Ross Colton's contract, they're still like $3 million short on making that cap hit fit. It would be extremely, extremely difficult to make Elias Peterson work pretty much no matter what for the, and that's before you even get into he's probably a little bit on the softer side and might not make sense for the Avs anyway.
I mean, that's a Middlestat deal. Like,
sure,
Peterson, I don't think makes sense.
But
JT Miller is the one that you'd have to get out of there just because he's $8 million and you can get closer to making that work than Peterson's money. Peterson's money, it's just too much.
Right. Even if Middlestat's in the deal, you still have to do extra shenanigans to make the cap work for Peterson. So just eliminate that conversation off the bat. If you want to talk about Miller, fine, but Peterson's not happening.
No, but even both of them for me, they're both. It's not happening. So because
especially in season,
you're talking about reconstruction, surgery, and I'm talking about roster surgery. I don't see it. There's clearly an issue there. First of all, and I don't see the Avs being players in that situation there. No,
me either. To be honest,
the Avs needed to be in a clear situation, and that was the goaltending one, and they nailed it. And for me, I don't think they need to be in that Miller Peterson situation. That's me.
I don't think they should be at all.
I think Casey,
to be honest with you.
Exactly. I think Casey's going to figure it out. I think it's part of growing up, and it's part of figuring it out. The answers from within, and that's part of the coaching staff. That's part of Casey himself. That's part of the players around him. It's going to work out. Like you said it best. This first 40 games were absolutely delightful, if that's the right word today, SAT word. And then, but the last 20 have been not good. You know what I mean? But he's going to be fine, and he's going to need to be fine for the Avalanche to be good. So you can't sugarcoat it. It hasn't been good enough, but I think he will figure it out. And I think he's a good kid. He's a good person. I think he's got all the elements and the tools around him. And let's not forget, it's not easy to have success in the National Hockey League on a consistent basis. So I think this is all part of growing to be a 2C in this league. It's all part of playing behind Nathan McKinnon. It's all part of sometimes not having the best ice. Sometimes. I think he's going to be fine.
Eric, I kind of want to pick your brain on this because we're sitting here on a podcast talking about, hey, Ross Colton, Miles Wood, these are guys that could be potential trade options for the Colorado Avalanche come the trade deadline this year. I don't want to put you down. You're a far better hockey player than I'll ever be at anything in my life. Yeah. But I think it would be fair to say on the teams you played on, you were probably not part of the core as far as on-ice production. And locker room, different story.
Buddy.
But
not even part. I had no value.
And you've been through this. You've been traded multiple times.
Of course.
So when you're leading up to a trade deadline, when these conversations are swirling, how much does it actually affect the hockey players that names are getting thrown out in these things?
It does affect you. And I think you just said it. You know exactly where you fit.
Sure.
In people's puzzles, in your own puzzle and on the team's puzzles. Like, you know what I mean? Oh, that team X, they need a player like me that slots into this. And then, well, on my team, I'm the one that's susceptible to be gone. Absolutely. But that's the good thing. And that's part of, you sign those deals, money comes with it. But also the uncertainty of being in a place for a long time because of the cap situations, because of everything. And you can look at it two ways. You can say, gosh darn it, you know what I mean, I got moved. Or you can say, it's flattering because somebody wants me, you know what I mean? And trust me, to get back to, I was way below that. I was like, at the end, I was a guy with no value. Just like a lot of people in this league, they're National Hockey League players, but there's a few hundred players in this league that have no value, just like I did. No value, meaning you're going to get a puck for a puck. I mean, there's no value there. You might just be added at a deadline for depth, like I did at the end, just like the Avs are going to go get guys with no value. In my book, when I say no value, light value. But yeah, it's nerve-wracking, and to some people it affects their play. It does. because they can't cope with it. They can't figure it out. They can't put it together, even because they're happy here, the wife's happy, or the kids are happy, whatever it is, the situation, and then you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to get dealt. And that's tough. It weighs on you.
Yeah.
I actually like that comment that was just up on the screen about Landeskog. No, Landeskog, it doesn't really matter, but is Wood really going to stick past this deadline? Isn't he truly like the obvious candidate to go here?
Has been for a while, yeah.
Like lost his job to Kylington, and then they added Peterson in.
Yep.
And if you don't move out any of those other wings, you are talking about one of Colton, Rantanen, Lehkonen, Nichushkin, Drouin. Like one of those guys is in your bottom six as well. Yep. You have Logan O'Connor. Kylington has obviously earned a spot there. Like Miles Wood doesn't really have a place on the roster anymore.
I think especially you look over the last week or two where you've finally seen Logan O'Connor get back to the guy that he used to be before the surgery. Like the last 10 days, it feels like, all right, this is the LOC we're used to. He's back to being the mayor of Denver. Exactly. And that felt like the last spot that made a lot of sense for Miles Wood. If LOC is filling that style of role, it does feel like you have enough other pieces. Parker Kelly has had an upturn in his offensive production the last little bit. Obviously, you mentioned Peterson. It's starting to get real thin real quick in the bottom of that lineup. Now, in the immediate, if they say, hey, Miles Wood is healthy and ready to go tomorrow, sure, he's going to slot in over a Poland or an Inola. But with what this roster looks like after the trade deadline, I think he's probably the easiest one to see as the odd man out. Just the reality of the business sometimes.
Cards will be dealt. And,
yeah.
I mean, it's just you'll figure it out at that time. It's all speculation, like you said. But yeah, it sure feels like that sometimes, and it's not a fun feeling sometimes. You know what I mean? Because it just stinks. Because you're happy somewhere.
Yep.
That's the reality of playing in the National Hockey League.
Yep. It happens. We're going to take a quick break, and then there's one other cap thing I want to talk about. So we'll pause for just a second here. All right. I already know the answer to this. We've already talked about the answer to this. But this is what the chat wants. The chat wants to talk about these things. Does Mikko Rantanen's next contract have any impact on what you do salary-wise in season?
Say that again?
No.
That with that exact inflection, that is my thoughts as well.
What was the question, though?
Does Mikko Rantanen's next contract have any impact on what you do at the trade deadline, salary cap wise?
No.
Okay. I thought so.
Unless you're getting another Peterson type, look, I've already made the case in my predictions piece for John Beecher, a guy that will stay for multiple years.
That's not a prediction. That's a love letter.
Sometimes they're one and the same, but unless it's a guy like that you're planning on you could see like a path forward for keeping that guy. I don't see where you're worried about, because you don't know what it is. We don't even know what the salary cap is next year.
That's true.
There you go.
It's hard. It's really hard to make any kind of concrete financial planning when you don't even know the space that you're working with right now. So, because if Alan Walsh is correct and they end up at a $97 million cap, boy, that helps Colorado a lot.
Would be.
If they don't, and it's several million below that, then trying to make deadline decisions about something like that is really, really tough. Peterson made sense because Parsonen's going to sign. He's an RFA. He's going to sign for $1 million next year. You were going to have $1 million guy. Somebody in your lineup was going to be $1 million guy at the bottom of that lineup. But that's not unique to Peterson. So unless they're going out and getting another guy that they're going to sign for meaningful money, no, I don't see where Rantanen's money will have any impact. And no, you're not trading him at the deadline.
Yeah, that no. I said this the other day, but do not take any of that seriously. The Avs would be crazy to trade Mikko Rantanen in season. And
Not happening.
whether, and this is a conversation of like, however you feel about it in chat, the Colorado Avalanche as a hockey team believe that they could do the thing this year. And if they believe they could do the thing, like, they're not going to trade away pieces that make them worse. Like,
which has nothing to do with the cap.
What do you get for Mikko Rantanen that you think you're going to be good? Like,
there's nothing that can make you better, basically.
Unless there's a Jonathan Huberdeau, Matt Tkachuk situation where it all just like the perfect stars align right there. Unless you get something like that, it's not going to happen. You're going to lose that trade, and you're going to significantly lessen your chance at winning a Stanley Cup this year. And you only get so many shots at it. So it's just the way of the world, you know. It's easy for us to say, well, if you don't think they're going to win. I mean, statistically speaking, you're unlikely to win every single year. But teams aren't trading guys like Brady. I don't know where this Brady Tkachuk thing is coming from. Why would Ottawa do that?
Especially given where they are this year, where it feels like they may finally be able to get into a playoff spot or something. But
right, like it's just these teams don't trade guys like this. Nashville's not trading Ryan O'Reilly because he's a great culture guy. He's cheap. He's their top line center. Like they're not moving that guy. Barry Trotz wants to build around a certain type of guy, and Ryan O'Reilly is the guy that you want in your room.
I would say even then, I know we're just tangenting at this point, but do you really want to trade a 25-year-old center for O'Reilly's 34 now? Like, you are flirting with the what if O'Reilly just falls off a cliff?
I mean, at this point, man, I would probably give it a whirl just because
I know,
Ryan O'Reilly is such
but
a picture perfect fit for what you want to do. Also, what an amazing story it would be. Like the homecoming
comes back
up here. All the old wounds are healed, and it's like, amazing. You know, like that would be great.
So you're telling me he's going to Dallas?
No. Not a chance, for the record.
You know how hard it is for me to get to Denver right now? All the work I have to drive to the New York City airport and to get on a flight and come out. I'll do it, dude.
Just to punch me? Yeah.
I will do it so I can shove that microphone in your stupid face. Keep talking like that. That is instigating, sir.
It is what it is. And none of us are trying to sit here and tell you that the Avs cap situation is easy. It's not. But the way out of it is not trading one of the best players on your team. And look, I'm wrong all the time, but I think you have to be doing some serious mental gymnastics to think that the Avs aren't going to do everything in their power to keep Mikko Rantanen this offseason.
He's going to be here. And it's easy to make trades on Xbox, too, just for the record, or to fix your cap on Xbox. It's very easy. Not that
on
easy.
On Xbox, you just turn the cap off when you have a problem.
Turn the button off. At the end of the day, Mikko Rantanen is not going anywhere. There's so many uncertainties. There's some guys that are nervous about their play when they don't have a deal. They need to have that deal, that mental security. He's not like that. He doesn't care about waiting. He waited his last contract. He held out for a bit. Again, I say it all the time. I'll say it again. I understand there was no cap back then, but there was a cap. People don't understand. 0-1 with Sakic, Wub. Like, they all waited 30 minutes before signing. Landeskog, did he wait right? Did he sign right before? Or did he?
It was like 10 minutes before the deadline.
That's my point. Is the captain.
It was half an hour.
The face of the franchise. If you've never been in those situations, it's hard to explain. Joe's been in there. Now he's on this side of the fence, meaning I'm not picking sides. I'm saying the management side of the fence. He understands what those players are going through. There's a lot of internal pressure from the Players Association. That's a fact. It's not a rumor. It's a fact. There's a lot of uncertainty. Like, what's the cap going to be? There's a lot of uncertainties with Gabe's situation. There's a lot of uncertainties with a lot of things. And as a player, why does it matter if you sign today? You're really not gaining anything. I'm being honest. And then people are saying, well, the more they wait, the more Mikko scores. Yeah, Mikko is going to score 55 goals this year or whatever it was, like he did last year or the year before. That's what you make. You make $12-13 million. So I hope he's going to score that this year, or else you're really not paying him the right money. You know what I mean? So I'm not worried that he's scoring. You want him to score goals. You want him to feel good. You want him to win. He wants to win. He doesn't want to go anywhere else. But it's normal to make sure that you're not jumping into situations. And right now, there's no reason for him to do so.
The thing about that argument is it goes both ways, right?
Yes.
If you're saying, why don't the Avs sign him now? Because he's going to score more. You don't think Mikko's camp is sitting there going, why would I sign now? I'm going to score more.
That's it.
This is the same thing with Mackenzie Blackwood getting signed immediately. Like that's where the risk was for both sides when they signed that deal. For the Avs, they got the cost certainty, but yeah, they paid a little more for a guy that hasn't really proven it as a starter.
Yep.
Especially in the postseason. For Blackwood, he got security. Could he have gotten a 6x6 on the open market? Yeah, he might have been able to, but he would have had to have played great. Now, nobody's asking any questions, and that's great. But with Mikko, you're talking about he's going to have extra pressure from the PA to not take a huge discount, to take a contract that will reset the market for wingers. And it's just, it doesn't make sense for him to sign right now. I know I saw the TVA Sports report a couple of days ago that put him on the trade board. It wasn't even them saying the Avs are going to trade him. They just were like, hey, maybe. That's all the trade board is a collection of, well, hey, maybe you could see it.
Yep.
I never would have read a TVA Sports trade board otherwise, so it worked. They got me. Clicked.
I like those guys. But yeah, you're right. Anybody can write anything. I mean, or say anything. It is what it is. But I think they're way off base there on that one.
I do think we had one super chat to hit before we wrap up today's show. $7 from KC, who says, hey, AJ, last night on the pod, I was told you're into skincare. Mind sharing your skincare routine? I would love to know what products and brands you use.
We threw under the bus.
Oh, what were you guys talking about, man? That's messed up. Yeah, no, I you know what? Without any prep, I wouldn't need to go get everything to be able to go through it. But I'll tell you, just wash your face, cleanser before bed every day, exfoliate once a week, and then I use a SPF moisturizer in the morning, and then have another moisturizer at night. I prefer the Peach and Lily. It makes me feel wonderful, and my skin feels great, and look, I'm sitting here looking at me right now, and I need to exfoliate. So we're going to get off this pod, and I might just go do that.
There you go. So one person on this podcast takes care of their skin at least. It's not me and Eric, that's for sure.
I said I wash my face. That's what I said.
Look, it's part of a nighttime routine now. You do all that. You brush the teeth. You clip the toenails. You give yourself a little. Give yourself a little love, man.
I sleep. End of day. That's it.
I'll tell you, before getting on the antidepressants, it was a lot harder to do. Now that I'm a little more well regulated emotionally, it's a little easier to commit to it.
I believe that. We can take a quick look at this homestand the Avs are currently in here. Obviously, the win over the Rangers in interesting fashion the other night gets them off to the right stand, but 4 games remaining in it. A little bit of a 5-game stretch that, look, I know you guys are probably getting tired of me saying it, but there are some important games here. You have the Edmonton game coming up, but then you have 3 Central Division teams in Dallas, Minnesota, and Winnipeg, which you're all battling for position in the division for. They're all 4-point games. You have the opportunity to make up a significant amount of ground over the next week in the Central Division.
And if you look at it, it sets nicely because you're catching a tired team, right?
Yep.
In Edmonton. You're not playing Sega Bob, even though the Avs do well in Sega Babas, but they hurt you down the road. They hurt you a few days later. But this is a perfect play. If you don't want to practice, you don't want to practice. If you want to have a practice, you can have a practice. When I say a practice, it's a real practice with everyone participating, not those optionals. So I think the schedule lays up nice, and I think you try to make your homestand as successful as it can be. And those parts are they're all parts of short-term goals that they have, as you know, with the 4 seasons coming up with that little break there. So those were all part of short-term goals, and I think last night again, even though it wasn't the right way to play the game, it was certainly the right score.
Yep.
To start the road
The W is the
not
W.
road trip,
Yeah.
but the homestand. Sorry.
Yeah. We'll see. Not a whole lot else to say than that. The Avs have to go play the games. We are going to wrap up this show. We appreciate all y'all hanging out with us on an off day. We are, of course, back tomorrow. Pre-game, watch-along, post-game as usual. So join us for that. Like and subscribe here on YouTube. This has been the DNVR Avalanche Podcast presented by Bet365.
We all silly like the mayor.